I don't think I'm alone on this. I normally dislike TV finales. Obviously, everything must come to an end, and I do like a good ending, but more often than not, I find myself feeling like shows end on a bad note, or at the very least, weak notes. Yes, not all series endings are bad, but plenty lack the satisfying feel they set out to do. We all know Game of Thrones ended bad. It was a rushed ending to a show that was awful as the final season started. But it's not just about shows that went bad or ran for too long. One of my favorite shows of the last decade, Gravity Falls, was consistently good from beginning to end, and yet it still ended weak. Don't get me wrong, the final arc in Gravity Falls was pretty amazing, and they built up to that ending spectacularly. And then we got to the final 10 or 15 minutes of the hour-long finale. It dragged on and on. It was like the ending of The Return of the King. Too much was being shown for the farewell, when really a shorter, smoother goodbye would work just fine. Did we really need to make sure that the pig was allowed to go back home? This farewell type of ending has become a little more common in the age of continuity-driven shows. For example, Steven Universe also had a similar problem, wherein the final episode was Steven saying goodbye to a bunch of characters. It wasn't as dragged out as Gravity Falls, but it felt less like a story, more like the crew saying farewell, which isn't as satisfying as it sounds because it ends up feeling like the show is aware it's ending, thus taking me, and possibly even you, out of the mood. Sure, if you're a huge fan, you may feel like crying from seeing your show end, but at that point, it's more manipulative than good storytelling. I know a finale should at least feel like the end, even if you're unsure it truly is the end. Hello, revivals, reboots, whatever. But at the cost of telling compelling stories, I'd rather get a satisfying story with resolutions to the story at hand than a 10 to 20 minute episode where characters just say goodbye to the audience. So then, what to me is a great example of a good series finale? Aqua Teen Hunger Force's ending, the last one forever and ever, for real this time, we fucking mean it, is one hell of a way for a show to go, especially for this one. It starts with Frylock and Master Shake seemingly playing a VR game, but Frylock insists it's serious. Meatwad, always the child of the team, wants to play and manages to beat the simulation. Alone. Surprising Frylock, who reveals it's actually a practice to prevent him from dying, as the jewel on his back is fading and only a replacement of the same can save him. In a not so shocking twist, we find out Shake has the same jewel, meaning he needs one as well to live, but not Meatwad, who traded his away years ago. That's kind of funny. After a short, funny detour to complete a bucket list, the episode sees Meatwad and Shake leave to find the jewels. Frylock is left behind as he no longer feels physically healthy, while Shake is killed during the mission and Meatwad succeeds. At least until he realizes he left a jewel behind on accident, resulting in Frylock dying. Oops. Meatwad grows up, gets married, and has children, as we see the show close after Meatwad departs with his family from his childhood home, ending the show in a touching way that is as absurd as we'd expect. Aqua Teen Hunger Force was always a silly show, of course. It's about talking food who seem to be crime fighters, but most of the time they just mess around. It's essentially Teen Titans Go, but for adults. No serious plot lines and everything's a joke as the leads mess around at home. This finale works because while we do get farewells, it's all in service to a slightly meta story about the Aqua Teens dying, while trying to find a MacGuffin to keep them going, but they can't. At least in show, the reason is that they screwed up. In reality, it was just a cancellation. Meatwad surviving gives a bittersweet ending that can relate to younger viewers who grew up with the show, seeing the youngest Aqua Teen grow up as they did, which gives it an emotional weight that the show normally wouldn't offer. But it's okay here because it's the end and the absurdity is still there. And you know what the best part is? It wasn't even the actual finale.
Get back to the ship! You made the man! Look at me photobombing them clams. That was some weekend, huh?
Shortly after the series finale, Aqua Teen Hunger Force came back with one more episode. And before you say that perhaps it was one meant to be shown prior, nope. The episode begins with the Aqua Teens watching themselves in the prior episode, concluding the event didn't happen, or matter. Shake discovers religion and convinces the show's villains to help him with immortality, as Frylock, Carl, and Christopher Lambert have fun with actual immortality. Well, Lambert is actually bored of it, but whatever. Eventually, Shake and the show's villains are killed. Frylock and Carl go to jail due to a misunderstanding, while Meatwad is old and tasked with finding Lambert, who was turned into doves by a magician. All the while, Frylock tries to convince Meatwad to get immortal too. And then the show gives one last post-credit scene, wherein the Aqua Teens and Carl question the final episode. Well, this may seem like an insult for long-term fans. The truth is, the show was absurd. The ending deserved to be absurd. It was smart to end the show feeling just as lazy and random as the show always was, because it was a goodbye that was tailor-made for the show. And it made us laugh as we were tricked into thinking Aqua Teen Hunger Force would go out on an emotional note. Instead, we found that the show was never gonna go out like that. It was a huge joke till the very end. It didn't overcompensate, it just played to its strengths, and fans love it for being just as absurd as the show normally would be, which is why I think it's one of the best finales out there. They fooled us with a touching and effective send-off, only to randomly come back and do their usual shtick while saying, nope, you know we're not that kind of show. It's appropriate and much more effective than one long goodbye, which is what more shows should strive for. Finales with actual weight to them beyond just the characters waving at you as the credits wait to roll. Well, goodbye.
Aqua Teen.